Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Ballantyne with the Mount Vernon Brewing Company, aka MVBC, here in Mount Vernon, Ohio. Here to talk to you today about making, well, in this household we call them beer cookies, but most people just call them spent grain dog treats. So, just quick few words about making beer. When you make beer, there's not a whole lot of waste in the end of the process, except for a massive pile of grain. If you're doing an all grain brew, it's a lot of grain. Even just doing 5 gallons of beer, you might end up with 30 to 50 pounds of wet spent grain. We call it spent grain because it's like spent ammunition. It's done. It's garbage. Grain, when you're making beer, you have to split it open. You have to crush it. And then you put hot water through there, and you're basically leaching out all the good enzymes and sugars from that grain. So there's not a whole lot you can do with spent grain. You can feed it to hogs. Hogs will eat anything, and grain is one of those things. So a lot of times, the big brewers who end up with hundreds of pounds of spent grain at a time, they have arrangements with farmers who come and pick it up and feed it to their hogs. So hey, it goes somewhere. It's good. Otherwise, it's just going to become compost or landfill. So, if you're a home brewer and you're doing an extract brew, generally there's not a whole lot of spent grain left over. So we're talking about a couple pounds maybe soaking wet. So today I'm going to be working with about 3 cups of spent grain. There was more. This is actually spent grain that I froze at the end of one brew. To be thawed out and made into dog treats later. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And let's jump to supplies and things.
Okay, so here is our recipe. You ready for this? Really complicated. You need spent grain. In this case, I have roughly 3 cups of spent grain in a glass here. You'll need eggs. You'll need about 1 egg per 1 cup of grain. You'll also need flour. So the recipe is basically 1 cup of flour and 1 egg for every 1 cup of spent grain. That's it. Super easy. You're going to put all that in a bowl and stir it together. It's going to kind of look like oatmeal cookies. It's kind of crumbly and weird, and that's why I like to add a little bit of oil to it. So either add a little bit of veggie oil, something to kind of soften it up, or creamy peanut butter, or for that matter, chunky peanut butter. It's all what your dogs are into. So the peanut butter definitely does help kind of smooth it out. It makes it easier to work with and easier to get into a pan. So here I've got my pan with some foil on it and a little bit of non-stick stuff, and that's it. I'm going to stir all this together and press it out. So see you in a moment. Stirring up them eggs. 3 eggs. Got my flour and my spent grain in a bowl. Loosh. Delicious. Some other things I like to say about spent grain. Rinse that off. There are no hops in this. That is super, super, super important. Dogs have a weird allergic reaction to hops, even a little bit. You'll notice when you're when you do an extract kit, you get a little pouch of hops or hop pellets to put in your recipe. A lot of times they'll print right on the bag there that this is absolute poison for dogs. Keep it away from animals. So that's really important. So this is just grain. And that usually isn't a problem in your homebrew process because you're steeping your grain usually in a kettle on your stove with one of these little extract kits. So you do your whole grain thing first. And that's when you take the grain out and you pitch it. So that's the point at which we set it aside to make cookies later. And it's not really until the boiling process that you're starting to add hops. So not really a problem. Just, don't ever use grain and hops together to make these cookies, because that would be bad. So I'm going to add some peanut butter next here. Pretty good sized dollop. I'm going to add some more. Notice I'm not really measuring this out. I just want to add, that's almost like 1.5 ice cream scoop sizes of peanut butter there. I'm going to be pretty generous with the peanut butter. I'm going to clean the spoon off in my mouth, because I also like peanut butter. Alright. Another thing you can add to this, and this is where I might get in trouble with my viewers. They may disagree and tell me it's a bad idea. And I'm okay with that. I don't care what you think. But look what I'm doing. Sugar. You may say, you can't put sugar in dog treats. Why not? Everybody else does. If you're buying off-the-shelf dog treats, I can almost guarantee that they're loaded with sugar. Because guess what? Dogs like sweet stuff just like we do. So, I'm going to roll all that together and kind of smash it together. Also forgot to mention my stove. I preheated my stove to 350 degrees. And, you know, usually when I do this, I'm brewing at the same time. So, I'll be trying to add a cup of flour and a cup of grain together. And then, pretty soon it's time to add hops. And, you know, I've got various timers going off behind me. So, to just make brew cookies, or dog beer cookies, doesn't seem to really take that long. Seems to take much longer when I'm pausing a lot to go actually work on the beer. So, just stirring this together now. And ultimately, as I kind of push down on this, it's going to start turning into like a oatmeal cookie kind of texture. So the egg and the peanut butter definitely help hold stuff together. So this is kind of hard to do one-handed. I'm going to put the camera down and finish mixing this up. Okay, so I got things pretty well blended here. Once everything's kind of mixed together and it's starting to stick into like a more of a dough thing, you can start kind of kneading it and folding it over in the bowl here, and it basically turns out like a big pile of cookie dough. Notice the color is really dark too. This was like a dark green that made a dark flavored chocolatey beer. So like a Russian Imperial Stout kind of thing. This has a really chocolatey taste. Like, it's not bad. You know, you can eat these cookies too. They're very high in fiber. Probably not something you want to enjoy on a late Friday night, but they are edible. But yeah, dogs like chocolate. Unfortunately, they're really allergic to chocolate, and it's a bad thing for them. But these aren't. So I like to think this is the closest thing your dogs are going to get to eating chocolate in their lifetime. And so why not give them some? They really appreciate it. So I'm just going to use my big hands here to press this out. I put honey in one of these one time, and it came out really good, really sweet, because I think I added sugar and honey, little overboard, but boy, the dogs really liked them. It was delicious. But the problem is, it was really hard to press into a pan. I think I actually had to spray down a pizza paddle with some cooking spray, because otherwise it was just coming right back out of the pan onto my hands. It was just impossible to press down in here. So there we go. So I like to kind of press this into the thickness of the pan, which is about 1/2 inch. And I'm not going to fill the entire pan, and that's okay. Just trying to kind of get some squares and rectangular shapes out of this here. This looks pretty good. I've seen people use cookie cutters and actually cut these into, you know, dog bone shaped things. And I suppose that can be done too, if you're so enthused. But I'm going to tell you, the dogs don't spend a whole lot of time with these. They generally inhale them, so I'm not going to go through a whole lot of trouble to put them into cute shapes to stick in my refrigerator. Alright. Yeah, as far as consistency goes, there's a lot of different recipes out there. Some people want these more like a dry, crunchy treat. So you would probably use a higher temperature. You probably wouldn't use as much egg, certainly not as much peanut butter. And that would give them like a granola bar texture. This will come out fairly soft, so they're still pretty easy to cut, and you can throw them in a bag, but I usually keep these in my fridge, and that keeps them soft. And yeah, it's a good texture. Dogs like them. Alright, that's looking pretty good, ain't it? So, I'm going to open up the oven here, throw it on the top rack. Whoop, where'd you go? Come on back here. There we go. And we'll bake that at 350 for probably about 15 minutes. Sometimes it's more like 20 minutes, depending on how thick these things are. But 15's good. Let's see where it's at in 15 minutes. Okay, so we got 1 minute left on the clock. I'm just going to check these, see how they are looking and feeling. They smell amazing. So it's still kind of squishy in the middle. It's starting to firm up at the edges here. That's kind of the texture we're looking for. So I'm going to give it like another 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Oh boy. Alright. So we've been in there just about 19 minutes total at 350. Smells delicious in here. Wow, it smells really good. Phew. Alright. And that texture is perfect. So, just slightly spongy. You know, it's a little dried up at the edges. That's fine. Again, we want this like a granola cookie. And I think we've got that texture. I'm not so much into the super crunchy texture because if it's too dry, your dogs just sort of hack on it and it's nasty. So my goal here, I don't really have to let that cool off a whole lot, but I want to get it on this chopping board, so I can't really do this one-handed. So I'm probably going to put my camera down here. But what I'm going to do is lay the board right over top of that and just flip it over, and it's just going to fall right out of the pan. So, sorry, you're going to miss this step. I need my other hand. Alright, so just as we planned, I flipped that pan over, and it just fell right out. So, perfect texture. And I like to kind of cut these up while they're still hot. And our goal here is to just sort of cut some long strips, and then I'm going to cut them in thirds. So that makes just about the right size doggy treat. So, just going to hack through them here. Nice little bit of steam leaking out. This is all about portion control here. You know, if we try to cut them too small, they're going to kind of break apart. If we make them too big, it might be a little too much fiber, depending on the size of your dog. And yeah, good time to talk about fiber. These suckers are like 90% fiber, and then you're adding peanut butter to it. And I gotta tell you, some dogs don't tolerate peanut butter well at all. So maybe start off with small pieces if you're going to make these, and make sure your dog can digest them and get them into the yard. That's just full disclosure there. If this causes your dog to get severe diarrhea, I really apologize. I have not had that happen yet. So, alright, so that's pretty good. And these are still a little hot, so we're going to let them cool down before we try to feed them to our animals here. I've got one particular animal here who's patiently waiting for the first one to fall off the end of the counter there. She doesn't care about the portions at all. So, I'm going to let those cool down, and then we'll try them out. Okay, hey friends, it's getting really crazy in here now because I said the magic words, beer cookies. Beer cookie? And they're excited. So we've let these cool down for several minutes. Yep, that's good. That's good. Let's see. Let's get our first review in here. I'll give you the smaller piece, big girl. She doesn't chew as well. What'd you think? Oh, honest reviews. What'd you think? other half of these, huh? Oh, okay. All right, so now everybody's going to get one. Delicious. All right. Thanks, guys. There'll be more later. In fact, I got a whole bag of them. So I tend to store these in a freezer bag, and that works out pretty well. I stick them in the fridge. They stay soft. I can keep them for a couple weeks, and generally they don't last that long because these dogs love them. Look, she's going to hang out. See if any more fall off the counter here. But yeah, that's all for now. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I know this girl did. And this little guy.